They Were the Last Resort, Part 2, by Hylian Hero 71. March 14th, 2034. Aboard Frontier Station 034. Alliance Base. "I can't help you with that one, sir," Logan Wayne said, his voice coming somewhat warped out of the transmitter on the mask of his environmental suit. He was usually chosen for this sort of work, as his suit usually allowed him to pass far more unnoticed than any other human. He sat in a near-deserted bar, with only the insectoid alien sitting across from him at the table, and the bartender in the corner to give the place life. This was the only kind of place humans got to anymore. Frontier stations were really the only place even he could pass unnoticed, or at least unmolested. "Are you sure? I know what happened before, but they need help. If you won't do it for the Alliance, think of all the innocent people at risk if you don't," the newly reinstated Captain Krytek asked his old friend. The war with the New Order, though only a few months old, was going extremely poor for the Alliance. Logan took a sip from his drink, carefully using his suit to make sure it was clean. "Sir, it can't be done. I probably have better relations with aliens than any other human, and I can't. I've got a kid now, sir. I can't just run off to play soldier. None of us can. Last time we did, we lost everything and everyone. We've clawed our way back to having a decent life in our fleet. I won't do anything to risk that," Logan said, his face not visible through the visor of his mask, but his words were absolutely sincere. Krytek sighed into his drink, at least, as much as an approximation of a sigh as his species could manage. "I understand, but could you answer something for me? Anything for you, old friend. As a part of the brass, I've been given authority to track certain civilian businesses for security reasons, and I've noticed something interesting. A number of companies operating in the frontier regions, anonymous owners and investors. They make no profit that I can find, yet make strange purchases. Weapons, armor, shields, all fit for ships, enough to refit an entire fleet for war, I should think. They also purchase tools, equipment, enough to build factory stations, shipyards," Krytek explained, his tone half curious, half accusatory. "Nothing gets past you," Logan said with a laugh. "Look, I know I said I'd tell you, but I'm not at liberty to reveal that. But I can tell you an old human saying that applies quite well. Hope for peace. Prepare for war." Krytek was silent. Logan could tell he wanted to say something, but was hesitant. "None of this is why you actually asked me here, though, is it?" Logan said knowingly. "Indeed. There's something I need to give you. Something you should know. Something humanity should know." Krytek passed him a data pad. "These are extremely classified dossiers," Logan remarked, reading the pad. "Aren't you committing treason by showing this to me?" "I've had a lot of time to think about the cause I've served since the war," Krytek said sadly, as Logan began to realize what he was reading. "How far does the organization I served have to go before treason changes from a crime to an obligation?" "How could they do this?" Logan whispered, staring at the datapad in shock. If what he was reading was true, it wasn't the enemy that glassed Earth. It was the Alliance, their own allies. "I had no part in it," Krytek assured him. "I only discovered this a few weeks ago. I called in lots of favors to get that document." "Why give this to me?" Logan asked. "I'm obligated to show this to our Senate. God knows what they'll choose to do when they learn this." "Whatever they choose, it's no more than what they deserve for their treatment of you," Krytek agreed. "I, for one, no longer want any part in the Alliance." "Are you saying you want to defect?" Logan was surprised, and all the time he'd known Krytek, his devotion to his cause had never wavered. Krytek only nodded. As the two men stood up to leave, Krytek asked, "Say, how did a man with your condition have a kid?" "Very carefully," Logan responded with a laugh, as the two left the bar. 3 days later, aboard lifeship New Eden, unclaimed space. "This is outrageous," shouted the majority leader, a man by the name of Hans Miller, senator from UHS Homestead. "We must seek retribution for this betrayal. I know none of us want to speak of it, but if the Alliance does not confess to these crimes and give us those guilty, then war is the only option." The Senate of Humanity was chaotic normally, but this was beyond the pale. The room was small for the amount of delegates cramped inside, each sitting at a small desk with the title of their ship placed on it. There were more seats than at the last meeting, which was good. Building new ships had become an integral part of recovering humanity. Logan wasn't a senator himself, but as an important military leader, he held quite a bit of sway, and he had been given permission to speak at this meeting, standing between the two debating leaders on the floor. "Be that as it may, we've not the numbers or strength to prosecute a conflict on an interstellar scale," responded Amanda Crowley, the cool-headed leader of the Peace Party. "I disagree," Hans answered, his hot-headed rage clearly visible in more members of the Senate, and indeed, the population at large. "The retrofit projects have gone swimmingly, and our new military craft have performed beyond expectations. Our mobile shipyards and mining outposts are increasing production exponentially." Logan sighed from his spot between the two on the debate floor, all the representatives of his race staring down at him. Everyone knew the choice would boil down to how the military assessed the situation, as they often done whenever the Senate failed to agree on something. "Admiral Wayne, how does the military feel about our strength?" "What shall we do?" the Speaker of the Senate asked. He wasn't sure how to answer. Revenge was a fool's game, he knew that. It wasn't worth risking everything just to get back at someone who had wronged them. But despite how used to living on ships he'd become, he longed to step foot on Earth once more, no matter its condition or how long it would take to repair. "Our forces are ready and capable," he finally announced. "We will send an ultimatum to the Alliance. Surrender Sol and its neighboring systems to us, and extradite those involved in the destruction of Earth, or risk war." 4 hours later. "We need to build more live ships," Logan noted quietly to himself as he walked through the halls of the ship, pressing through the crowds. He was used to it, of course. The crowding had been even worse when they first received these ancient ships. Thankfully, humans had a knack for engineering, and most had learned to be repairmen, a job which was always in demand on these things. After passing through the market quarter and the public areas, he made his way to the private section. Even among his own kind, Logan stood out, as only a few humans had gotten the same condition as him, and none lived on the ship. A few people stopped to speak with him, asking about simple matters, something he wished was all he had to worry about. At last Logan stepped into his quarters, sighing deeply. The fleet was mobilizing, and he had just made a choice that will either win them back a home or cause their destruction. "Dad!" The excited young voice of James shouted as a 5-year-old suddenly clung to his leg. "Hey there, bud," Logan said, kneeling down and hugging his kid. "Where's your mother?" "She's asleep. She said she didn't feel good," James said. "You know, I think it's about time you went to bed too," Logan said, glancing at the clock. He scooped up the child in his arms, carrying him through the small quarters to his room. "There you go," Logan said softly, as he laid the yawning child down in his small bed. A few toys were scattered through the sparsely furnished room. Logan wished he could provide more, but that's just how life was out here. "Tell me a story about Earth," James demanded, as he always did before bed. "Oh, all right," Logan conceded. Sitting down at the foot of the bed, he told James his favorite story, about a trip Logan had once taken with his father, hiking through national parks of Utah. James loved his descriptions of the landscapes, and hearing of his grandfather, and Logan loved recalling it. When the story finally drew to a close, James was nearly asleep, staring out the room's large window at the blackness beyond, pricks of light hanging within. "I want to see Earth, Dad, and I wish you didn't have to wear a suit," he said softly. "Me too, bud," Logan responded, patting the child softly. "Me too." 12 hours later, within the war room aboard UHS Stern Resolve. "What is he doing here?" asked General Johnson angrily, as Logan and Krytek entered the secluded war room. The other two commanders of humanity's forces stood around a hollow table. The aforementioned Johnson, leader of humanity's ground forces, and Admiral Parker, a no-nonsense woman that commanded the Scout Corps, whereas Logan managed the heavyweights. "He's here to help us," Logan answered sternly. "If it weren't for him, we'd have never known who really destroyed Earth. And for that we thank him," Parker said before Johnson could retort. She served with Krytek during the war, like Logan, and knew he was good. Senate sent the ultimatum to the Alliance a few hours ago. We expect a response within the next hour. If we don't receive one, I say we move in and seize the demanded systems. What of the extraditions? Logan asked, leaning over the table. He didn't look nearly as proper as them, though it was difficult to wear a uniform over an environmental suit. I'm working on contingency for that, Johnson answered. Good. Let's worry about Seoul, Logan continued. Krytek, what are the defenses in that sector like? Not much stronger than back during the war. That is to say, very little, Krytek answered, his mandibles clicking as he pointed to a series of locations on the map. These are the defenses. Listening posts, patrol centers, comm relays. That is something we can handle, Parker remarked. Agreed, Logan said, plotting a two-pronged assault to encircle the demanded systems. We'll go in like this. The battle fleet and the recon fleet will handle any fighting, and the civilian ships will only go in if absolutely necessary. Sound plan, Johnson remarked. High praise. He never approved of Logan's ideas. A small ping echoed in the silent room. It's intelligence, Parker said, checking the message. They received a response from the Alliance. And what is it? Logan asked impatiently. They all already knew the answer, but they needed to hear it. Do the words preposterous, impossible, or ungrateful get the message across? They seem to believe they've called our bluff. They know we don't have the numbers. They think they can beat us, Parker said, not raising her eyes from the comm panel. Ungrateful? Looks like they want to do this the hard way, Johnson remarked angrily. So here they were, on the cusp of war with the largest force in the galaxy. Even though they were distracted with the New Order, the thought was perilous. Hadn't they lost enough already? What if they retook Seoul, the plans for terraforming failed? If they backed down, everyone would be proven right about humans. Logan took a deep breath. The sound of his son's wish to see Earth echoed in his head as he spoke determinedly. Deploy the fleet. They want to fight us? Let's make them remember why they needed us to fight for them.